Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in truly across the country from Newfoundland to British Columbia today for another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants session. For those of you joining us for the first time, and there are quite a few of you today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And you can check out over 3,500 past programs on our YouTube channel right there. Now, we have been kicking off the new school year in style. We got 18 programs this week alone. It's going to be a wild ride. Please do check us out on our YouTube channel and website. But today, I'm particularly excited because we are diving back in with our favorite partners of all at Parks Canada. Parks Canada has done over 60 broadcasts with us over the last few years. And last year, we did a special partnership series with them featuring some of the amazing parks of Newfoundland and Labrador, which is now where I call home. We've been to Red Bay, we've been to Lonson Meadows, we've been to Gross Moor, right up the road from me a few times. And today, we are wrapping up that series with Seal for All Seasons at lovely Choix National Historic Site. So we are going to learn a little bit about this amazing spot, some of the Indigenous history there, and more. I'm going to stop stealing their thunder and turn you over to the amazing Choix team. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys, and take us away.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angela Decker, and I have the wonderful opportunity to be working here at Choix National Historic Site. And I'm really excited for you to learn all about the Seal for All Seasons this afternoon. But before we get started, I'm just going to do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge with respect the diverse histories of the Beothuk, the Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit people of this place. We give thanks for the land and waters and the rich culture and history of the place where we work and live here at Choix. We strive to be responsible stewards toward the land and to respect the cultures, ceremonies, and traditions of all who call it home. We commit ourselves to working in a spirit of reconciliation towards a right, respectful, and reciprocal relationship. Thank you. So I'm so excited that we are hearing from Choix National Historic Site on the Great Northern Peninsula within the field unit of Western Newfoundland and Labrador. And I'm going to turn it over to one of our trusty seasoned interpreters to take away the Seal for All Seasons. Eileen.
Thank you, Angela. Again, welcome to Choix National Historic Site. And as they said, my name is Eileen, and I'm going to deliver you some information on the program that we deliver here on a daily basis called the Seal for All Seasons. Today, like I said, we're going to talk about Choix National Historic Site and how Choix has played a role in the lives of people and the marine resources that's here. Going to our map here that we have, you'll see that we have the map of Labrador and Newfoundland. And Choix is a little piece of land jutted right out into the Strait of Belle Isle. So you can't see it very well right here. So we do have it enlarged over here that you can see it. If you look at it, it looks pretty barren and pretty remote, but this has been the site, the habitation site for people for nearly 6,000 years. And you might say there's not much happening here, but actually it's very rich in resources. We have our beautiful history here that contains our flora and our fauna. In just a little area here, we have 11 different orchids that grow. So that in itself is an amazing thing that grows here. But right across the peninsula, we have this beautiful site that we call Phillips Garden. It's an 8-hectare meadow. And this is where the paleo people came from Labrador for 800 years here to harvest the herb seal of our coastline. Going back again to this map right here, you'll see Labrador. And what happens is the seals come down from Greenland. They spend their summers in Greenland in the Canadian Arctic. And then in around December, they'll leave and they'll come out to the colder waters here. And they'll come down the coast of Labrador. And right here at the tip of Newfoundland, which seal hunters and is referred to as the front, the seals, when they get here, they will just naturally divide into two herds. One herd will go this way and one herd will go this way. And what happens is the cold waters of the Canadian Arctic, it'll meet right here with the warmer waters of the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Where these two waters meet, there's a constant stirring of these two waters. In that water, there's a supply of plankton that grows. And of course, plankton is just a little vertebrate that lives in the water and it can't swim against the strong currents and it just floats around there. And what will happen is the cod will come by here and they will feed on the plankton. And then the seals follow the migration of the cod and they feed on the seals. So one species depends upon the other. As I said, the seals will come down the coast of Labrador and they'll go in here. So this happens in December. So they'll pass Port au Choix in December. They'll go out into the Gulf and they'll do their breeding. And they'll come back up on the pack ice in March and April on their way back to their summer home, like I said, which is in Greenland in the Canadian Arctic. And they'll meet up here. They'll have like a little reunion, I guess, and they'll all travel back in pack ice, the pack ice back to Greenland. The paleo people knowing this, and after living in Labrador for thousands of years, they would have noticed the migrating of the seals. And it was a very important resource. So they would cross from Labrador to Newfoundland that we call the Strait of Belle. It's a 9-kilometer stretch here. It do freeze in the winter. So these people were able to come from Labrador, pulling their supplies on sleds made from whale ribs. And they would be here to have access to that. You might say, well, why Port au Choix versus St. Anthony or further up the coast? But Port au Choix was the ideal location, as I mentioned earlier, because of the meeting of the two waters. As well, here in Port au Choix, 12,000 years ago, Port au Choix was covered by glaciers. And as we were going into a warming period from a cooling period, and the glaciers in the beginning, like I said, had the land pressed down. And as the glaciers receded and the land rebounded, the land and the water in Phillips Garden was pretty well level. Around 6,000 years ago, the sea level was about 6 to 8 meters higher than what it is today. And 2,800 years ago, when the paleo people were coming here, it was on an average of 4 to 5 meters higher. It was the ideal location, like I said, in that fact that the land and the water was pretty well level. And there's around 60, maybe 70 house depressions that these people put in Phillips Garden over the 800-year period. And the interesting thing about that is the doorway in all of the houses faces the shoreline. So it made sense because like there was no trees, there's no boulders, there's no big cliffs, it's just pretty well level. And they could stay inside in their houses and watch for when the seals are on the ice, which is mainly midday. They come up, they have like a little siesta, they feed their young. And the paleo people could just leave their house, walk right off, pretty well level, like walking across the room or just across the driveway, harvest that particular resource and bring it right back up to their house. You could say, well, what did they do with the seal after they had it? So basically at that time in history, the seals could provide all of the necessities of life for what these people would need in history. It provided clothing for them. If they were harvesting the spring and they were in Labrador from the last spring right up until the next spring they came back. So I guess the coat and the pants that they had was pretty well worn out by then. And they were able to make new clothing that you see right here. And to make a jacket like this, it would take anywhere from 5 to 6 pelts to make this jacket. A beautiful jacket. And the pants that you see below here, again, that would take around 4 to 5 pelts. So if you had a family of 6 or 7 people, a husband, a man, a mom and a dad, and 3 or 4 children, they would have to harvest quite a few pelts to make those jackets for everybody to get a new jacket. And even maybe in some cases, I'm sure they had probably a couple of jackets each. In addition to making the clothing, they would make boots like we see right here. And there's a whole process to get this pelt from with the fur on it to no fur. And what happens is when the paleo people, they harvest that resource, they would take the pelt and they would lace it in a frame like we have here. And then using a tool that they call the ulu, which is made out of stone, and they would cut all of the fat and the meat out of this pelt. They would continuously do that. That might have taken 2 days. It might have taken 2 weeks, I guess, depending on the weather and the conditions. When they were happy that they had all of this done, as much as removed from it, they would take a scraper like this. Again, it's made from pretty well the same type of stone. And they would break down, they would press on that, and they would press all of the oil that was left from the fat in the pelt, and they would let it run. They would always break down and let it run down. They would collect the oil in the bottom in soapstone pots. When that's done, then they would take this pelt and they would put it in a freshwater pond. They would put it in a pond first side down. And we know the paleo people could do that because right here, just off from Phillips Garden, is a freshwater pond. Archaeologists, historians, and geologists came here in the winter when this was frozen, drilled down and took core samples in the bottom of the pond and they were able to find evidence of the seal processing in the bottom of this particular pond here. After this is in the pond, probably 2 to 3 weeks, with fur side down, the microorganisms that are in the pond will just naturally de-hair the pelt. When they would take this out of the pond, if there was any hair left on it, they should just give it a brush and it would very easily fall off. When this comes out of the pond, the pelt is kind of like a light cream color, like you see on the back of this pelt right here. And they would take this and they would put it in a solution of salt water and bark from the various trees, mainly the spruce tree and the fir tree. And that had been decayed in the salt water. They would take this pelt then and put it in the salt water and leave it there for 7 to 9 days. And this would kind of dye the pelt. Depending on how much bark that you had in the water would determine the color of your pelt. A lot of bark, a dark hide. Like a few birch bark from the trees, you would have a much lighter pelt. When you take this out of the bark solution after 7 to 9 days, you lace it back in the frame again. Then you just put it outside and you stand it up by your shed or your fence. And 3 or 4 times a day, as this is drying, you would go out and you would stretch on the laces and you would pull on this and you keep this pelt really tight and stretch it, and you get a larger pelt than from when it's left in its original state with the fur on. Now this pelt is ready to be made into many products. The paleo people would cut this in one continuous circle and they would make a string. So this would enable them to tie their supplies on their sleds made from whalebone when they were coming to and from Labrador. They could also make a string to put in their boots to keep it tight, to keep the snow and that out of it, a string for their jacket, or whatever, even to tie the parts of the houses together. So it was a very important resource to those people at that time. Other items of clothing, like I said, in addition to the boot, these people would make mitts. In some cases, the mitts would be made with the fur on to keep them warm. And also, getting back to the boots here, they kind of had like summer boots and winter boots. This is a pair of child's boot with the fur on the outside. They would kind of wear them like this in the winter, which would give them warmth, and they would have them like this for in the summer. You might think, well, that's not very thick on the bottom. It's been hard to walk in. The paleo people would they would pack them inside with a moss and bird feathers. So that would give them some thickness on the bottom and protect their feet from walking on stones and ice and keep it a bit above the ground for the cold. So that's how they would do it. Today, what happens? The boots are still worn more as a fashion statement now than as a necessity. And we use the liners from Skidoo recently today just for a fashion statement. And they would do the same with the mitts. Like I said, they would sometimes leave the fur on the back and have the rawhide on this side as well. In addition to the clothing, the string, and the boots, the seal also provided nourishment for these people. Seal meat is very healthy for you. It's very high in omega-3, rich in vitamin A and vitamin D, and has good medicinal purposes as well. For all you folks out there, helps fight arthritis. And seal oil is still processed today and sold right here, and people take it to ward off their arthritis, and it also helps fight some immune diseases. Just a little bit of health information there. The seal meat, like I said, it provided a healthy lifestyle for those people, and the paleo people would eat the seal meat. They would have it fresh, so you can imagine all winter, and they were eating probably dried caribou, dried seal meat, dried berries, because that's the way that food was preserved at that time. So to come to Port au Trois and have access to fresh meat, it would have been a delicacy. It would have been a good treat for them at that time in history. They would eat it dry, they would eat it fresh, they would eat it fermented, and they were also able to boil it in soapstone pots. Today, our seal meat is eaten baked in the oven. It's fried, and it's also preserved in a jar like I have right here, a bottle of seal meat. And what happens is the locals today, they'll put it in a mason jar like this with a bit of salt, a bit of pepper, put it in a pot and boil it for 3 hours. And now this bottle of seal meat has a shelf life of approximately 2 years. And even in the early 1900s, preserving seal meat was basically a necessity on the Northern Peninsula, considering that time period in history and the resources that was available to them. So we got our food covered, we got our clothing covered. Seal oil was a very important resource to those people. The seal oil provided heat and light. They would have a wick, a lamp like this made out of soapstone, and in the middle right here, you'll see we got a little tiny wick, and they would take a wick, braid it out of probably a piece of rawhide, sinew, or braid grass very, very tightly, saturate it in seal oil, and burn it. So when they were in their houses, this would provide light and heat to the people. In addition to the hide of the seal providing clothing and the meat, it also provided shelter. 2,800 years ago, like I said, here in Phillips Garden, the houses were made all round. The houses were all round. They would use whale ribs like this. And then over the whale ribs, they would use they would use a layer of seal pelt. Then they would overlap another and overlap another. And the end result would be similar to this one that I have right here. You can see how they had the seal pelts layered. So it provided heat, light, shelter, food, clothing. Basically, like I said earlier, all of the necessities of life is what the seal would provide. Today, the seal is still harvested. There is a seal hunt that takes place every spring, the same as 2,800 years ago. There's approximately 8 million seals in the seal herd today. It's a hunt that's very well controlled by our government. But like I said, the people today still hunt and they still use all of the resources. We have some modern day products that I'm going to show you that's made from the seal. We have a fur hat made from a seal pelt. Mainly the harp seal is what was harvested here. The boots are still made. Boots are still made today, and the jackets, handbags, and even jewelry. You can see I'm wearing sealskin earrings today, brooches, and a bracelet that I have right here. So it's still all of the seal is used. Oil, pelts, food, everything is used. So I'm going to leave you with a few fun facts about seal. I don't know if you knew, but seals are really good swimmers. And the seal can hold its breath for approximately 15 minutes. And in that time, in the 15-minute time that they're holding your breath, they can dive down to approximately 300 meters to have access to the food. They use their whiskers in the ocean. Their whiskers can pick up the vibration of prey, so that enables them to tell if prey is close by, and they can just dive or swim away very, very quickly. I don't know if any of you know how long a seal can live in the water. They can live up to approximately 30 years, and they can tell the age of the seal by the deposit in their canine teeth. Scientists can look at it and tell by how much deposits in their teeth how long that the seal have lived. Seals can sleep on the land or in the water. In the water, they can lie on their back and just kind of bob around. They can also sleep in an upright position. Their head is just out of the water, and they just kind of bob around, and they're having a nap in a standing position. A female seal is called a cow, and a male seal is called a bull. So there's a couple of interesting facts about the seal. A seal at birth can weigh around 22 kilos, 22 pounds. I think it's 22 pounds of 10 kilos. But a baby seal that we call a white coat will only feed off its mother for approximately 10 days. And in those 10 days, the milk that they're taking from their mom is on a 42% fat ratio. And in those 10 days, they can go from 22 pounds to 90 pounds. So they gain weight very, very rapidly. And during those 10 days, the mama doesn't eat at all. But after 10 days, she says, I'm done with you. I'm hungry enough. And she'll just abruptly leave the white coat and go off and hunt. And the baby seal has to learn how to fish and survive on its own after a 10-day period. So we're going to leave it now, and we're going to leave it open to any questions if you have any.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the adventure. And Bonnie Lou, if you want to get us around where we can all see each other for the question period, feel free to do that. I will open the floor to all our YouTube viewers as well. If you want to tune in and share any questions, we'd love to hear from you. We do have a few to begin with, and then our Ontario 6-7. If you want to let us know in the chat, if you got all that, please do share some questions and we will dive in. So our first question is, we talked at the beginning a bit about seals coming and sort of being harvested for many thousands of years. Have we had a change in when seals get there with climate change? Do seals still come in big volumes? Do they come in a different season? Anything you can share with us about how they come now?
The seals?
Yeah.
They come in quite a large herd. Like I said, when they come down the Labrador coast and they come to the tip of Newfoundland, there will be thousands of seals. And I had some pictures of I wish I had them here. I don't have them. No, I don't have them. The other year, I took pictures on my way to St. Anthony, and the seals, the ice was just covered with black specks. It was just like grains of pepper on a white sheet of paper. There was like thousands of seals. They all come in herds like that.
Thank you so much for that analogy, which is a new one in the annals of exploring by the city of Banff. Our second question, can you still get a sealskin jacket? So you showcase some of the amazing clothes that people have made with these. Can you still buy one of those? How much would they be?
Yes, you
Where
can
would
still
find
buy.
them?
You
Yeah.
can still buy basically anything from a seal pelt today. You can buy the sealskin jacket. We have an economy museum further north in a place called Shoal Cove East. And this is where this jacket came from. It's going to cost you, you're not going to get it for $29.95. Probably going to cost you in the thousands of dollars.
Wow.
But they do make the sealskin jackets. Put a handbag over there, please. And the hats and the purses, coin purses, boots, whatever you want made in a sealskin jacket, they can do it for you. And they also dye it. If you want like a burgundy bracelet or a green fur hat, it can all be dyed. And you can make a beautiful handbag that my coworker Angela is modeling right here. Right? The beautiful shoulder bag, right? And we have a green bracelet there that's been dyed green. So you can get anything you want from a sealskin hide.
I love that we got an impromptu fashion show. Thank you for the extra bonus.
We're quick on our feet here.
So we highlighted, of course, sort of how this fur is so necessary, how the skins are necessary for sort of handling the challenging winters. For our classes that are in British Columbia, say, what are the winters like in Port au Choix? Give us set the stage a little bit for what it's like out there.
Ooh, the winters here are cold and you can shiver a lot, but we get it and we enjoy it. With the wind chill factor here in a storm, we can get a storm here anywhere from around 110, 115 kilometers an hour. I've witnessed many storms like that here in Port au Choix. And just 2 winters ago, we had our power gone in those conditions for a period of 3 days. So you kind of have to have a backup the heat in your house, and you always got a supply of food on, hence the bottled seal meat, bottled moose meat, bottled rabbit. When the fur is gone, you just can eat it right out of a frying pan, warmed over a wood stove if you got it in your basement. And we can get anywhere from 8 to 10 feet of snow. And with the wind drifts, I got pictures here that I took a few years ago, and the way that the winds drifted, our power lines were covered in the wind drifts. So our winters here can be harsh. But on nice sunny days, we all get out, we do skidooing, we do snowshoeing, cross-country skiing. Winter activities here, we're really busy in the winter.
Yeah, I always like to highlight to my friends who are coming to visit me here in Corner Brook. So I'm right down the road from Port au Choix, a few hours south. And we, on average, get 4 meters or almost 13 feet of snow every year. By the end of the winter, the snowdrift is taller than I am, and I'm 6 foot at the end of my driveway. Yeah. So it's
my sister came to visit me 2 years ago, and she lives in central Newfoundland, and she was here 2 weeks. We had that 3-day storm, and then Tommy shoveled out, and the roads got cleared, and we made sure the highway was safe and free of ice. She was here for 2 weeks before she got to go back to Grandpa's Windsor.
Oh no!
So.
It's a little different here, but it makes it more fun, I find. We're gonna head to our live class. Who have a couple questions. I'm gonna start with one from you guys. 6'7", come on in and take us away. Hey guys, if you can hear us, maybe they're just sharing in the chat. I know you guys had a few audio issues earlier.
You guys hear us?
Yep, perfectly.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I can't hear you yet, but we have 2 questions. Where do seals spend the majority of their lives? Like which country? And what would be your favorite seal product?
Ooh, good questions.
Well, the seals, like I said earlier in the intro, they spend their summers in the Canadian Arctic, in the Greenland area. So they come down here in December until April. So about 5 months in Newfoundland and the other 7 in the Canadian Arctic. That's on an average. Yep.
And then a favorite.
And what was the other question? What's my seal?
Yeah, the favorite thing you have, the favorite thing made from seals that you know of or have or want to share with us.
Well, my favorite thing that I have is I learned the process of making seal skin boots, like the ones that we have right here that I'll show you. These are not mine. I have my seal skin boots at home. And I'm going to say about 10 years ago, I was interested in the seal product and doing this program here at work. And I learned the craft of making seal skin boots. So I have my own seal skin boots. So this would be the most favorite thing that I have in seal products, in a seal product. But
Very,
I also
very
got some
cool.
earrings and a brooch and a bracelet, so it's all good. I like it all.
One thing that I find just like highlighting about Newfoundland and Labrador in general, because I came from Toronto just a couple of years ago, is how much people live off the land here. So there's still, whether it's jewelry, whether it's fashion, whether it's food, you talk about rabbit meat, moose meat, like to a huge degree, this is still interwoven into the culture across the entire province. And it really makes it special to live here because everybody has stories like this of things that they use or things that have been passed down, things that they go out and do every year. And it's a nice contrast to a bit of the sort of city story that we get with a lot of our classes coming in. So thank you very much for highlighting all that.
Yes.
We got a great question about Indigenous people still living there. You highlighted at the beginning a few of the Indigenous peoples that have been in Newfoundland and Labrador since time immemorial. Are there still Indigenous people living there and at Port au Choix specifically, or in the region, or anything you can share with us?
Yeah, we still have some Indigenous people that live in the area, especially the Mi'kmaq people. We have a few Inuit people that live here, ancestors of these people. Yeah, there are people that live in this area here. Mm-hmm.
Yep. In Corner Brook, where I am, Halibut First Nations, like a really prominent.
We have those here. We have the Halibut First Nations people here as well. Actually, in this area in Port Saunders was just 6 kilometers south of here. The chief of the Newfoundland Indigenous people live in Port Saunders. Mm-hmm.
Oh, fantastic. Small world.
Small world.
So we got just a few more questions. Time flies and you're having fun in these broadcasts. Our 6-7 class, we'll ask if you guys have more too. Please feel free to chime in the chat. But one question we have was if there's other species that are harvested in this way. So seal, of course, we're focusing on in this broadcast. Are there any other local species that you want to highlight that the people there would have utilized for fur, for food, for anything else?
Well, they would harvest the caribou. Back in the day, the Indigenous people 2,800 years ago, they would have had access to the caribou. They would have had access to the salmon. The salmon rivers are close by here, so they would supplement their diet with the salmon from the rivers. Again, that's a fish that's very healthy, omega-3 in the fish oil, and that helped contribute to the healthy lifestyle of these people. But today, we harvest the caribou. The seal is still harvested. We hunt moose now that has been introduced to Newfoundland. We do our cod, our shrimp, lobster, all of that is very much harvested. Like you said, people live off the land here in this area. Depend on it. Yeah,
a little bit of everything. Thank you so much for that. We got a great last question from one of our classes, which is how long does it take to make clothing out of a seal pelt? So you talked about the boots. How long do those take to make? The coat? Anything? Any sort of benchmark?
Well, if you're like we say a professional at the sealskin boots, I mean, the lady that showed me how to make the sealskin boots, she would have a pair of those done in 2 to 3 days. But for me, it would probably take me a week to make a pair of sealskin boots because I don't make them as often. I'm not as fast at it as she was. But you'll notice right here around the toe of the boot, we have a stitching. And what happens once you start the stitching, you have to finish it because if not, you'll lose your pleating process. So there is a process. And by the time you get that done, your thumb and your finger is really tired, is tense because you have to keep it pulled tight to keep it tight at that point. So for me, it'll take me about a week. But the lady that I learned it from, Mrs. Hughes, Celia Hughes in Green Island Brook, she could make a pair of boots in 2 days.
Wow. But the skill for this, again, highlights why they're so...
It's a craft. Unfortunately, it's a dying craft. A lot of the people now, they're not interested in doing the younger generation, right?
Yeah.
The seal is still very much used today. We have in addition, we have the seal earrings that we have here, the carving.
Yeah.
Right? It's a way off. She give me the wrong one. And this is just a little craft that's showed right here.
Holy, look at that. What an incredible piece. Jeez.
You can find all of that stuff in the shops here.
Yeah. This has been such a fun broadcast, getting to feature a little bit of Canada and a little bit of the history that a lot of our students might not have heard.
A little bit of Port au Choix. Yeah, Port au Choix is very, very rich in history. A lot of local folk stories here. If you were to come and immerse yourself in Port au Choix, you hear lots of interesting stories and lots of recipes and lots of way to hunt different things. And it's an interesting place. I came from central Newfoundland, and when I came up here, it was just like culture shock, even though I was a Newfoundlander.
See, this is the thing that makes it interesting. it's why we featured so many amazing Newfoundland and Labrador parks, because again, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know that history. So I've brought up the website below. I've shared it on our YouTube channel. If someone were to visit Port of Choix, what could they do? If someone's coming to check out the National Historic Site, where do we send them?
Well, of course, our National Historic Site will be our first place. You could come here and get all the information. You can have a self-guided tour through here. You can take part in our seal program that we deliver on a needs basis. You get to taste the seal meat when you're here. We have it preserved in jars, as I showed you earlier, and we give our visitors a taste of that. We tell them where they can buy it. You can go on our limestone barrens, which is very rich in the floral of the area. We have 55 different plants that grow here at different times of the season, 11 different orchids, so you can explore all of that. You can go out to the lighthouse. There's lots of history out there. We have a resident herd of caribou, approximately 15 caribou that stay around here. Sometimes they're right out in front on the patio looking in the window. And they're here year round. For some reason, they don't migrate. We also have there's a local heritage group in town called the French Rooms, and they interpret the French history. They have a reconstructed bread oven. You can go there. They bake the bread, serve it to the public with jams from berries that grow in Newfoundland. Lots of history here in Port of Choix.
Well,
We have a local artist in town as well.
I'm gonna skip the next broadcast. I have a program right after this, but I think I'm gonna cancel that just so I can come up and see it. But it's just a drive down the road for me. So you've sold me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's lots of history here in Port of Choix. Beautiful hiking trails that we have here. We have just within the National Historic Site, we have 9 kilometers of hiking trails that's well groomed, maintained by Parks Canada. And you get to see a high point. At one point, you hike up 120 steps. You get a beautiful panoramic view of the ocean, and the park is beautiful.
Well, you couldn't be more enthusiastic about the place you call home. If you try, thank you so much for all of this. This is lovely. Is there any more? I'm just going to wrap up, but if there's more you want to share, go for it.
No, I can't forget to mention where our history starts here in Port of Choix nearly 6,000 years ago, when the Maritime Archaic people, who were the first people ever to live on our island of Newfoundland, lived and buried their dead here in Port of Choix for a period of 1,100 years. So if you came to Port of Choix, we can direct you to the burial site. You get a sense of the place. You see how much land is after rebounding since the glaciation that I mentioned earlier in the last 6,000 years. And it's a beautiful place to visit.
You couldn't have sold it any better if you tried. Thank you so much to you and the entire Port of Choix team. We are going to wrap up there, but have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day, everyone. And we stay tuned for the French one in just a couple hours. See you later.